Doctor Who is back after 8 seemingly endless months of waiting and waiting and waiting. We finally get the new season of Doctor Who with Peter Capaldi as the 12th Doctor. I am Patrick Day for the LA Times. I'm here with Mary McNamara, our TV critic. And remotely we have Eric Deggans, the TV critic for NPR, and Drew Siragusa, who is the head of TARDIS maintenance and repair for Fanboy Comics. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi, guys. Thanks for joining us.
So the name of the first episode was Deep Breath. It was written by the showrunner Stephen Moffat, and it introduced Peter Capaldi in his first full-length adventure with Clara as the Doctor. So initial thoughts, Mary.
I liked it. I mean, it was definitely, it's a new era of Doctor Who. I mean, we had a lot of new stuff. We had a new opener. We had like modified music. We had a new TARDIS, and we also had, to my mind, like a new self-consciousness where we had like it opened with a review of the Doctor. So obviously they're trying to embrace the new fans, the American fans, catch them up really quick. It was hilarious, but it was like kind of a slow start. I mean, usually when we have a regenerated Doctor, we get right into the action and right into like, what are we going to do? Who is this new guy? But I also thought, you know, they took on the issue of Capaldi's age right from the beginning, with Clara saying, but he's a new Doctor, but he seems so old. Even though, as we were just talking about earlier, Clara is one of the few companions who actually has seen all of the Doctors in their many incarnations, so that was a little odd. But it was obviously a way of Moffat addressing issues that had come up when Capaldi had been cast.
Right. Eric, were you on board with Peter Capaldi from the beginning, or is it going to take some time for you to get used to him?
No, I loved him, and we found out during the pre-show that I guess his name is pronounced Capaldi.
Oh,
so I have to work on that for NPR now when I talk about
Capaldi?
Capaldi?
What I loved about this episode, besides the fact that we saw some really great characterization of the Doctor as a new, we really got to know him as a new character. Capaldi figured out a way to play him in a way that we hadn't much seen, certainly since the series was rebooted. The female characters were more independent, and one of the criticisms of the show that I've heard, especially in recent years, is that some of the female characters weren't as independent and seemed to be very dependent on the Doctor, and this whole idea of a romance between the Doctor and Clara was sort of bandied about, and now we know that's not going to happen. That would be way too creepy, given the age difference of these two characters, and she seems a little more independent, and they're more contentious, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, Drew, did you like the Doctor right off the bat?
Well, it's hard to judge him on the first go because usually this is when he's at his zaniest. I liked him. I didn't like the episode though. I actually disagree. I think it's too much of repeating stuff they've done before. It was a lot of the girl in the fireplace, and then the Doctor and Clara's relationship are very similar to the Sixth Doctor and Perry's, where she doesn't know if she can trust him, and I just felt like I've seen this all before.
Mm-hmm. You know, one of the things that I was thinking about was the catchphrase. You know, a lot of people talked about, with Matt Smith, it was fezzes are cool, and I saw a lot of T-shirts like that. And I was wondering, with this Doctor, I think that the first catchphrase that comes to my mind is "shut up."
Agreed.
I think he said it 4 or 5 times in the episode.
Or I'm not a hugging kind of person.
I'm not a hugging kind of person. Was there a moment in this episode that this interpretation of the Doctor really sort of clicked in for you? I mean, there was a moment for me, which is when Clara is trapped in the chamber with the robots, and the Doctor's having trouble getting the door open for her with his sonic screwdriver. And instead of giving her the screwdriver to help her out, he says, "I might need it," and then he takes off and leaves her. I really enjoyed that moment, and I think that really made the Doctor work for me.
I agree. Actually, a moment that worked for me didn't involve the Doctor in the scene. It was the scene where Clara sort of had it explained to her that the Doctor's young face may have been a face that he was showing to his companions and to the world in order to be more accepted. And this Doctor is not as concerned with that, and maybe that's why he's older, maybe that's why he's crankier, and maybe that's why he's more willing up and leave Clara if he feels like he needs to. And I got to say, when you have a series that's 50 years old, if there's an episode that reminds you of something that happened 6 characters ago, I mean, it's going to be hard for them to come up with stories that don't repeat, I think. And what they were trying to do was strike this balance between referencing things that old-time fans would know, but also present an episode that someone who's joining the series relatively newly or recently could enjoy. And that's a heck of a balancing act when you also consider that they have to introduce this new actor as the Doctor and present him in a compelling way. And he's an actor who's played other roles and kind of has another persona, has been in another classic TV series. Given all the things they had to negotiate, I thought they did an amazing job servicing all the different things that they had to achieve in this one episode.
Yeah, Drew, you mentioned that you felt like it was a little bit derivative of earlier episodes, and in fact, in the episode, they make references to the girl in the fireplace. Do you think that that's not enough to just sort of reference the fact that these characters are aware that they've encountered this stuff before?
Yeah, well, especially because the Doctor never learned that the ship's name was Madame de Pompadour, and they kind of make reference to it, but he never learned that information. We, as the audience, did. And I felt it's like if for Star Trek II, they would have met like the other Voyager space probe and became sentient. Like it was the same thing, but with a different ship, and that's kind of what bothered me, is that it was repeating without it being a reason for it.
Mm-hmm. Did anybody get the chance to go out? The episode aired Saturday night, and then Saturday at midnight they had a special screening in 12 cities. Did anybody make it out to any of those screenings?
I
did not.
I did. I was talking with Mary about it, and I said the one thing that really helped my enjoyment of the show and seeing it on the big screen was understanding the Scottish accent. Having it sense surrounding you, you really sort of hear everything the Doctor's saying. There was no having to rewind. Mary, you had some trouble with that.
I did, actually. I had a couple of moments. I mean, you do have to get used to every new Doctor's speech pattern because the Doctor speaks so quickly and in such complete, often like sort of swirling sentences. And there were a couple of times where I had to like rewind. I couldn't get, because he also speaks very softly. Capaldi, is that how we're saying?
Capaldi is how they said it.
He doesn't have a loud voice. He's got a very soft voice. But I wanted to say something when you were talking about the female characters being independent. I thought, yeah, the strongest scene I thought was between Madame Vastra and Clara, where she's basically reminding everybody who the Doctor is, that he is 2,000 years old. I mean, he isn't a young man. He isn't, your boyfriend, and I think that that's really important because I think that especially with the rebooted Doctors, there has been this very high crush factor. It's like they're so cute, they're like the geek girl fantasy, they're pinup and all this stuff. And this is not that Doctor. This is more a return to the old-fashioned Doctor. This is, where that's not what it's about. This is not about, you don't get to date the Doctor. It's like nobody gets to date the Doctor.
Yeah, I do have to say, I was lucky enough to interview Peter about a week and a half ago, and we talked a bit about that, and I think that's a wonderful idea because, when you think about a character like the Doctor, there has to be a piece of him, a portion of him, that is unknowable by humans, because he is doing something essentially that we can't conceive of, which is he has the ability to see the time stream in a much different way than we do, and he's experienced time and spatial reality in a different way than we have. And to have a Doctor sometimes who's a little too relatable, who's a little too human, in a way I think almost cheapens the character. So it's great to see them return an element of mystery to this Doctor and say quite openly, this is a guy who on some level is far beyond any of the people that he's dealing with in most of these situations. And, that whole line about the pudding brains, this is the first time in a while that I can remember the Doctor being openly contemptuous of people who haven't earned that contempt in some way, simply because they can't keep up with them. And it's good to have an element of that, I think, back in the character.
I think this is the 4th season of Stephen Moffat as the main writer. Do you think that I know it's a little hard to judge based on just the one episode, but do you think that having Capaldi as the Doctor and his change in interpretation of the Doctor is going to affect Moffat's way of running the series? I mean, or do you think it's going to continue to be the same type of stories of lots of amazing moments with a very thin bit of explanation to explain how it's all happening.
I think it's going to be very I mean, I think it's going to be like Christopher Eccleston to David Tennant, where it's very similar. I don't think it's going to be as big as like David Tennant to Matt Smith. I think it's going to be similar, but it's going to be a darker one, but still similar stories.
Mm-hmm.
In every TV show and every TV series, if a showrunner's good, they play to their lead actor's strengths, and they find out what they're good at and what they look best doing and what the audience wants to see them doing, and they figure out ways to play to those strengths. And so that's something I think we're going to see happen with this Doctor. Certainly, I had the sense towards the end of Matt Smith's tenure that they knew exactly how to write for him, and they knew exactly how to craft the Doctor's lines so that Matt could really knock them out of the park. And I'm looking forward to seeing that in a different way with Capaldi.
It does feel like they're skewing back towards adventure because they're taking the romance out of it, and so now we're going to be back towards the Doctor roaming around. And also, this is a new Doctor because now he knows he hasn't destroyed his home planet. And that's a whole new thing, because for almost, especially during the reboot, that has like been the big secret weight that he's carried around, is that he killed all of the Time Lords himself, and now he knows that he didn't, and that's got to change somehow. That's got to change him somehow. And also, I'll be interested to see, he made reference to why this face, because of course Capaldi was in Doctor Who. He was in the Fires of Pompeii, and he played a character who was saved by the Doctor. Donna Noble convinced the Doctor to save this one family from Pompeii, and he was the father of it. And so he keeps saying, why this face? I've seen this face. Why this face? So I'm interested to see what the writers are going to do with that, what that face
He was also on Torchwood.
He was?
Yeah, he was on Torchwood.
And who did he play on Torchwood?
John Frobisher in Torchwood Children of Earth.
Oh, okay.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes.
So I wonder if they'll bring that in, too.
Well, and when I talked to Peter, he did make a sort of loose allusion to this idea that it is going to be Back to the Future, in a sense, that this Doctor may not be an entirely new Doctor. And, how they play with that, I think, is something that's going to be very interesting to see. That speech he gave at the end, every Doctor seems to sort of almost deliver a mission statement where they go, I'm the Doctor, I'm X numbers of years old. And, in his mission statement, he said, that he's done some things that he's not proud of, and it's time that he did something about that. So I think there's a sense that he's going to be returning to past adventures, past things he's done, past mistakes that he thinks he's made, and try to correct them, which could be a delicious kind of thing if they handle it well.
Yeah, there was a point in the episode where he was sort of muttering to himself about the robot people that he was encountering, and I think he said, I've met them before, I've met them before.
Right.
But he never came up with the exact adventure, and so it seems like you're right, that is going to be probably a theme of the season.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
I also wonder if they'll reference the fact that they met the War Doctor, because we had this special, that special where we had 4 doctors talking to each other. Was it 4 or 3? And so whether he will like talk about that he is actually now, for the first time, again, I think, come face to face with his own incarnations, even though it was as the incarnation of Matt Smith. But it's like all of these things that happened during the big anniversary blowout, one assumes will sort of trickle into this season.
Right. I was a little surprised, actually, that they didn't bring up the idea of Gallifrey existing in the first episode. I mean,
are they going to go find Gallifrey? That's what I want to know.
And what do we make of the woman who apparently appears to be this season's main villain that appeared at the end of the episode? Do we have any thoughts or theories about who she is?
Well, I thought some of the ideas that they floated during the after show were interesting. Is she possibly a TARDIS or the TARDIS? Is she possibly some other figure from his past? I can't wait to see how this gets rolled out. And the wonderful thing about Doctor Who is that no matter what corner they write themselves into, they can always set the Doctor and Clara in the TARDIS and send them off somewhere and totally rewrite whatever they've created that has sort of hemmed them in. So I can't wait to see how they sort of unravel this person's connection to some of the other things that these Doctors have gone through, right back to before Capaldi's reign as the Doctor.
And Eric, what you were talking about going back to previous adventures, I didn't notice this, but I saw someone wrote this online. That's the her garden is the same set as the Twin Rivers, or the Two Rivers from The Girl Who Waited. So that was when he left Amy there, the old Amy, and had to take the young Amy. So that's possibly one of his mistakes.
Huh.
I think that's probably part of the blessing and the curse of making Doctor Who, is that anything could be either, just a funny coincidence, or, the key to
like understanding everything.
Yeah.
I want to ask Drew, what did you think of the new TARDIS as the TARDIS maintenance?
I liked it. I've liked all of the new TARDISes. They've all been kind of expansive. It looks very similar to the previous TARDIS, but I'm interested to see. I always like when they show the corridors, so I'm hoping to see more of that again. Last season we saw some. But yeah, I look forward to seeing him running around the console frantically.
And how do we feel about Strax, Madame Vastra, and Jenny? I mean, do we want to see them as a more regular part of the series? I mean, they were there to sort of help the transition into the new Doctor. But what do you think? A little bit is enough, or do we want to see a band of adventurers in every episode with the Doctor and Clara?
I love them. I really do. But I think that, you get them like 2 or 3 times in a season, maybe twice. It's like, and there are other supporting. I mean, I still miss Captain Jack. When is he going to come back? Why can't we timey-wimey back to that? Because I miss him. I loved it when he used to show up.
I have to say, for me, the most interesting thing about this episode is the way that the Doctor evolved, and we felt like we saw new depths to that character. And I think the most important thing that the showrunners have to do is make sure that Clara and the Doctor continue that evolution and continue to expose new depths to themselves. And as long as that happens, you can surround them with other characters that offer you comic relief and offer you opportunities for adventure, and that's going to be wonderful. But if that core relationship doesn't get deeper and more engrossing and compelling as the series goes on, that's going to be the serious problem. And that's why I like this episode so much, because I felt like there was so much potential in that relationship. We learned so much about the Doctor in a very short episode, and then there's also this potential that we're going to learn a lot more as Capaldi learns how to play him, and as Moffat learns how to write to his new star's strengths and weaknesses.
So Drew, as the person on the panel who was not completely blown away by Deep Breath, is it going to be a long, grim slog for you for the next 3 months, or is it possible that they could turn it around next week?
They absolutely could. Like I said, you can't judge a Doctor on his first episode, because he's not the Doctor yet. He's still, regenerating. So they very easily could turn it around. I mean, there have been many episodes of Doctor Who I don't like, and then the next one is fantastic. So I absolutely hope the next one's great.
How do you feel about, I mean, as somebody, this is one of those shows that kind of went from being an outlier show, a cult show, and now it's gone very mainstream, and that can be really hard on the die-hard fans, the ones who can, take apart an episode line by line. How do you feel about the new found popularity of the Doctor?
It's good, as long as it doesn't become, from a writing standpoint, pandering to them. And I think that's why they cast Capaldi, to not go with the young, attractive man again. They went, old school. So I think as long as they don't just go only to these new people, if they try to be expansive, the more the merrier.
It seems like
what's been interesting for me is I've had people come up to me on Facebook and social media and sort of say, I'm hearing all about this Doctor Who thing. Like, how do I start? What do I binge view? To get ready for this. And I have a hard time actually answering that question, because I've been watching the series off and on since the days of Tom Baker, and it's sort of like coming up to somebody coming up to you and saying, hey, I've heard about this new Star Trek thing. Like, what do I watch to get up to speed on it? So I don't know if our super fan on this presentation has any recommendations, but I'm sort of at a loss of what to tell people, and if you guys have any recommendations, I would certainly appreciate it.
I always say just to start with Series 1 with Christopher Eccleston, because it does a good job explaining everything, but it's not like it throws it all at your face. It takes a season to kind of slowly explain things, and it's paced really well, and that's always where I tell people to start.
I always tell people The Girl in the Fireplace is one of my favorite episodes. It incorporates the future and the past It's a great episode. It's got heart, and it's the one episode that really captured me for the show.
Yeah. But I mean, the wonderful thing about the Doctor is you can start anywhere, because most of them, the adventure itself just kind of holds you, and they, and there are enough references to what has gone before that you can just jump into it. But I did feel like this was the first season premiere that I'd seen where the writers very consciously saying, okay, I'm assuming because we have this big, anniversary blowout, we've got new viewers, so here we're going to give you the brief, a brief overview of space and time.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, thanks for participating in our Doctor Who discussion,
coming.
Eric, Drew.
Thank
you very much, and Mary. And you can follow the rest of our TV coverage on latimes.com/showtracker.